The movie begins with a man named Mark, who was once an arm wrestler. However, due to some circumstances, he left wrestling and took a job as a bouncer at a nightclub in America. One day, while Mark was on duty, his old friend Kim came to meet him and tried to convince him to return to arm wrestling. At first, Mark refused, but after Kim's persistent requests, he agreed to play just one match. They then moved to the other side of the bar, where an arm wrestling match was taking place, with wealthy spectators betting on different players. Mark's opponent had won all his previous matches. Because of this, no one was willing to bet on Mark. Soon, the match began, and Mark dominated his opponent. No matter how hard his opponent tried, he couldn't move Mark's hand even an inch, while Mark effortlessly defeated him in a single move. Since Mark won the match, all the prize money went to Kim. However, the defeated player refused to accept his loss and attacked Kim. To protect his friend, Mark stepped in, and chaos erupted in the club. Due to the brawl, the club owner became furious and fired Mark from his job. A week later, Mark found a new job as a security guard at a shopping mall. One day, Kim called Mark again and told him about an upcoming arm wrestling competition in Korea. Kim explained that the athlete who won this competition would get a chance to play at the national level. Hearing this, Mark became thoughtful, as he had once dreamed of becoming an arm wrestling champion. He looked at his old medals and, determined to fulfill his unfinished dream, decided to leave for Korea. When Mark arrived in Korea, Kim picked him up from the airport. They went to a restaurant, where Kim proposed that he wanted to be Mark's agent so he could make money through his talent while helping him achieve his championship dream. Kim's real plan was to place bets on Mark's talent and make a fortune. Mark agreed, and the two headed to a nightclub to celebrate. Kim enjoyed himself, but Mark remained watchful, behaving more like a bouncer than a guest. On their way back to the hotel, Kim asked Mark if he had ever tried searching for his mother. Here, it was revealed that Mark's mother had abandoned him at an orphanage when he was a child. Mark brushed off the topic, saying he had no interest in his past. When Mark reached his hotel room, he found a gift from Kim. Inside the box was a phone containing the location of his mother. Meanwhile, Kim met with a wealthy gangster named Yo, trying to convince him to bet on Mark. After watching Mark's wrestling videos, Yo was impressed and agreed to bet on him, but on one condition: Mark had to win or lose as per Yo's instructions. The next day, Mark followed the map on his phone and reached his mother's address. Before he could enter, he encountered two children who mistook him for a superhero because of his muscular build. Just then, Kim called Mark, and he left without meeting his mother. The children ran inside and excitedly told their mother, Sujin, about the giant man at their door. Sujin looked out the window and saw Mark walking away. Sujin is Mark's stepsister and runs a clothing shop in a Korean mall. However, her shop was suffering heavy losses, so she had borrowed money from the gangster Yu. One day, while working at her shop, Sujin saw gangster Yu with Mark. Kim had invited Yo to watch an arm wrestling match, in which Mark was also competing. At the mall's club, Mark easily defeated every opponent, attracting the attention of wealthy bettors. Among the spectators was a man named Chang, who was actually Yu's boss. When Chang saw Mark's skills, he was impressed and rewarded Mark and Kim with a stay at a 5-star hotel. That night, Yo messaged Kim, instructing that Mark must win his first match the next day, but intentionally lose the second. Kim was nervous, fearing that Mark might not agree. But when he told Mark about it, surprisingly, Mark agreed without hesitation. The next day, Sujin sent her children to school and found an old box of childhood photos, including pictures of her stepbrother Mark. Meanwhile, as the kids left for school, they once again ran into Mark. Feeling uneasy, Sujin's son even threatened Mark, saying that if he ever came near their house again, he would call the police. That evening, Mark arrived at the nightclub for his match, where Yo had invited Korea's top arm wrestling champion, Combo, to evaluate Mark's skills. The match started, and Mark faced a 7-foot-tall, muscular opponent. However, he defeated him effortlessly, leaving Combo impressed. Sujin had also come to the club with her childhood photos, intending to reveal to Mark that she was his sister. But before she could, Yo confronted her about the unpaid debt and began harassing her. Seeing this, Mark became furious. Instead of intentionally losing his second match as planned, he won it. This caused a huge financial loss for Yo, who then tried to intimidate Mark. However, Mark wasn't afraid and pushed Yo away before leaving the club. Outside, Kim scolded Mark for disobeying Yo's instructions, reminding him that Yo was their sponsor. Meanwhile, inside Sujin's store, Yu's men attacked Kim and beat him badly. Hearing the commotion, Mark rushed in and fought off Yu's men. Just as he was about to take down Yu, the police arrived and arrested both Mark and Kim. To release Mark, the police demanded his passport, but it was lost during his first match. To prove his identity, Mark arm wrestled a police officer, but they still refused to let him go. Just then, Sujin arrived with her kids and Mark's passport. She also revealed that their mother had passed away. Hearing this, Mark was heartbroken, as he had longed to meet his mother just once. After being released, Mark was unsure how to thank Sujin, but before he could say anything, she and the kids invited him to live with them. Mark agreed and moved in with them. Soon, he bonded with the children, bringing happiness to their home. One day, some thugs were smoking near their house, refusing to leave despite Sujin's requests. But as soon as they saw Mark, they ran away in fear. Mark eventually decided to leave the house, not wanting to be a burden. But just as he stepped outside, he saw two of Yu's men approaching to collect Sujin's debt. Realizing that Yu wouldn't leave them alone, Mark chose to stay and protect Sujin and her children. Meanwhile, Kim, who was now broke, had an idea to make a documentary on Mark's life and earn money from his tragic story. Kim contacted a director, who agreed to the project. The documentary was released nationwide, telling Mark's life story and struggles. It became a massive hit, making Mark a hero in Korea. One day, when Mark was dropping the kids off at school, a small child made fun of his huge body. Hearing this, Juni got very angry and told the boy, "My uncle is a national champion, and there's even a documentary about him." At this moment, Mark made a promise to his niece that he would win the country's biggest competition and become a national champion. In the next scene, we see a man who was actually Kim's father. Despite his old age, he had to work hard to survive. Kim wanted to earn a lot of money so that he could give his father a good life. That evening, when Mark came home, his nephew showed him the letters that his mother used to write to him every day. However, Mark had never received these letters because the email address his mother sent them to was wrong. Mark's mother deeply regretted leaving him at the orphanage, and in these letters, she explained that when Mark was with her, life was so difficult that she didn't even have money for food. She had no choice but to leave him at an orphanage, hoping he would have a better life. Through these letters, Mark also learned that Sujin was not his real sister, but his stepsister. The next day, they all went to visit Mark's mother's grave. There, Mark became furious with Sujin for lying to him, and decided to return to America. He also chose to quit arm wrestling and live a normal life. Kim tried to stop him, reminding him that the national championship was starting next week. But Mark replied, "You don't get to say anything. From day one, you've only used my talent for your own benefit. For you, money is more important than anything else." Meanwhile, we see gangster Yu, who had been preparing a brutal arm wrestler named Kane to defeat Mark in the championship. Kane was a dangerous arm wrestler who didn't just defeat his opponents, he broke their hands mercilessly. Until now, no one had ever beaten this massive beast. On the other hand, Mark was training with all his heart and soul because he had promised his niece that he would become a national champion. Finally, the day of the competition arrived. Mark and Kim reached the venue. While back home, the children suddenly realized they had forgotten to return Mark's medal to him. Without wasting any time, they caught a bus and rushed to the competition venue. When Sujin found out that the kids had gone to return Mark's medal, she went after them. Meanwhile, the competition began. Mark, Kane, and Combo were competing in different weight classes. All three of them easily defeated their opponents and advanced to the championship semifinals. Kane played his semifinal match and brutally broke his opponent's hand, securing his place in the final. Seeing this, Chang, Yu's boss, bet all his money on Kane. However, he was still afraid that if Mark kept performing well, he might lose all his money. During the break, Yu met Kim and offered him $200,000, telling him that Mark had to lose the semi-final against Kamo. Unable to resist the temptation, Kim accepted the offer and walked away with the bag full of cash. He later told Mark about the deal, but Mark refused, saying that his promise to his niece was far more important. In the semi-finals, Mark faced Combo and defeated him, securing his place in the final. Seeing this, Yu became furious and beat Kim badly during the break. But just then, Mark arrived and saved Kim from the gangsters. After everything that happened, Kim finally let go of his greed for money and started motivating Mark to win the final. Soon, the final round began, and millions of people across Korea watched the match live on TV. As soon as the match started, Kane used dirty tricks, squeezing Mark's thumb tightly to injure him. Because of the pain in his thumb, Mark started weakening, and Kane was just moments away from defeating him. But then, Mark looked at his niece, who was cheering for him with hopeful eyes. At that moment, he remembered the promise he had made to her. Suddenly, a surge of strength rushed through him, and with a single powerful move, he defeated Kane. The entire stadium erupted in celebration, and the kids ran to hug Mark. In the end, Mark spoke on TV, saying that he loved his mother very much, and because of her, he had found a new family. Hearing these words, everyone's eyes filled with tears, and the audience gave Mark a standing ovation. And with that, this incredible movie came to an end.